Hi, my name is Darren Joseph from HTJ.tax. We're the team that seeks to demystify that sometimes confusing world of international tax. Today we have the honor and privilege of speaking with Christophe. Christophe, can you please introduce yourself?
First of all, thank you for having me, Darren. So I'm Christophe Newmar. I'm a French citizen based in Singapore for over 10 years now. And I'm specializing in wealth management, exactly wealth protection and wealth mobility in gold investment.
Fantastic. In terms of a plan B, I would imagine that two types of threats or that you'd be planning for. One will be acts of man and the other will be acts of God. Acts of man being, of course, conflict. And acts of God will be, for example, hurricane, right? As we've seen hit the east coast of the US recently. What are your thoughts on these two types of risks?
Act of man, you mentioned it, conflicts. It's usually, as people, we are involved, and in the best way, actually, in conflicts that sometimes we are not related to at all, but we suffer from that. And when I'm saying we suffer from that, I'm not only talking about the fact that we can suffer as we can lose families, we can lose people. No, we suffer because we are from this region. For example, I will take the Russian and Ukraine war. It became very difficult for Russians just for being Russian, just by that. Nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with if you have ties with the government, nothing. Just because your name is a Russian name, you could not open a bank account or they will close your bank account. And for us, it was, but this is not normal. It's not because you are from this country and some political leaders will take some decisions and you have nothing to do with that, but you still have to suffer from that. Why they will close your account in Europe or in Asia just because you were born in this country? This is where for us, we had to work on some solutions. And this is why I'm saying that this act of men could have very, very big impact. And we are able right now to offer to very legit clients a solution of still being able to access their wealth, even if they have a conflict, right? And even if they leave the country and they want to go to another country, they still have their wealth. And this is what we want. And regarding the act of God, this is the same thing, actually. Right now, we are all talking about the global climate, and we see how many hurricanes from my original region, which is the Caribbean. We see how many hurricanes we are waiting. Obviously, we are worried about all these situations. And in the same way, we are saying if something happens, we are able to still give you access to your wealth. We are still able to give you access to another country, and you still can start back your life without being too much hurt. And this is exactly what we are doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Acts of man, they are what they are. The geopolitical realities are what they are. To some extent, in terms of acts of man, it doesn't necessarily happen that quickly. We do have a sense that there's tension in a certain region right now. Let's get ready. I get that. Perhaps the preparation time may be years, perhaps it may be months, perhaps it may be weeks. Now, with acts of God or nature, sometimes the lead time isn't that much. It could be days or maybe weeks. But, it is what it is. And because everyone has a cell phone, there's a lot of first-person accounts of what's happening in parts of, the Carolinas all the way down to middle of Florida, Tampa, Orlando region, where we had the recent unfortunate disasters. And it's quite shocking to the extent that if you had prepared, for those who had a plan B, they had somewhere to go. Obviously, they packed up and they left. And they come back when things are in order, like infrastructure has been restored. But for those who didn't have somewhere to go or chose not to go, you can see the struggles that they're going through right now. For example, if power is down and you don't have cash, how do you buy food? How do you put gas in the car? How do you trade goods and services? And in the US, obviously a developed nation, you'd expect the disruption to be relatively short term. So in a few weeks, maybe a month, depending on where you are, you return to normality. But if you are not fortunate enough to be in a so-called first world region, it encourages you to think more strategically. Should there be a natural disaster wherever you are in the world, where do you go to? And if your country is not that big, then you probably be looking outside of that jurisdiction for a place to set up so that you can literally or figuratively ride out the storm and return there. And sometimes the period of self-imposed exile mightn't be just a few days or a few weeks. It might be as much as a year or two, depending on what the situation is. If, God forbid, we have another pandemic, that's what you're planning for 2 to 3 years, that you would be in another physical location and you need to carry on your life with the least amount of disruption as possible. Again, it's an awkward journey to go down. Planning these things is a bit morbid, but I think it's definitely worth it, given the uncertain times that we're in.
When you are looking at, we can do an analogy like your revenue. Plan B is just diversifying. They will say you don't have to rely on one revenue.
Yes.
You see, it's the same thing. It's nothing negative or not, but just saying, look, things can happen. We hope that nothing will happen, and I really hope that nothing will happen. But it's better to have a second revenue than not having your first revenue in case. And this is where exactly, even right now, with all the digital world, everybody is trying to figure out how can I make another income or more income, a side income. And this is it. It doesn't mean that it has to become your main income, but it's something that you can say, I can still count on this if the first source of income is going down. And I think it's wise, actually. It's just wise.
Diversification on all aspects of life.
Exactly.
Simple as that. Christophe, thank you very much for sharing some of your time and expertise. If people want to reach you, what's the best way to find you?
If you want to reach me, the best way will be on LinkedIn, also on our website, gold.com.
That's GAULD.com.
GAULD, exactly. Thank you, bro. GAULD.com. And AU is because this is the symbol of gold, actually.